got really high character kids. And I think when you have that, it makes everything else a little easier. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say that it's all coaching or X's and O's, because it's not. If you don't have the right guys, you can't operate. And so we've got great kids. Second, we've got a good staff. We got, in my opinion, we got the best staff in the state of Texas.
Step into the Fieldhouse, your front row seat to legendary victories and untold stories. Hey, I'm your host, Lance Lunner, breaking down sports from the inside out, along with co-host Jimmy Lackey. It's more than just a game. It's the Fieldhouse Podcast. Hey, welcome into the Fieldhouse Podcast, a production of Kids Inc. And we love being here, Jimmy. This is podcast number 32. I'm your host, co-host Lance Lunner. We have CEO, the man at Kids Inc., Jimmy Lackey. Jimmy, what's the best thing that happened to you today?
I remembered to put the trash out today.
Okay.
That's probably a pretty good start.
So your wife's happy as well, yeah.
Because I had a message to do so.
Okay, all
and
right.
replied, yes,
Wow, it must have been piling up.
It was that means take the trash to the curb.
Okay.
They come once a week, so don't forget.
I like that.
Yeah.
Hey, we are so thrilled today. We have a very special guest in, Adam Cummings. Everybody knows him, West Plains head football coach. Has been in the 806 in a long, long time. And just on this feel-good story, really, of not only the 806, but maybe the entire state of Texas, the way they went down and beat Stephenville and then took on Salina down to the end. So, and a great, great season. We'll talk about that as we get going on the show. But, Adam, thanks for joining us today.
Man, I appreciate you having me on. This is a first for me, so I'm excited. I obviously kept up with Jimmy for a long time, and what they do at Kids Inc. is pretty spectacular, and just honored to be a part of it.
Yeah, one thing I think I'm on the board, but we're so proud of Jimmy is, he makes our job so easy. But Kids Inc. is unique, Adam, in that it's able to, you know how this can affect cities, but it's able to touch all the areas of Amarillo. Right. It's just not, a lot of organizations, fair or not, they just get to one area. Sure. They do a great job, but we're able to hit it all. Yeah. I think we're very proud of that. And you see all those kids in the shirts and everything.
Long-standing history for sure.
Yeah.
Fixing to be 80 years old. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
Yeah, we'll be 80 years old in January.
Adam's kind of used to this. He's on my radio show a lot. But what's the best thing that happened to you today?
Just got to hang out with my wife and kids this morning. My daughter's exempt from her semester exam, so she got to sleep in a little bit and get up late. And so
is that from doing great work up to that point?
She's a good student. She does a good job. She's an honor student and works her tail off, and just really proud of her. But we got to get up this morning and kind of take our time where normally we're in a rush. So it was nice.
Here's my one piece of advice for her. So when I was growing up, it was based on grades and absences. So I didn't miss school because I did not want to have to take tests. I should have taken one or two before I went to college. I forgot how to take a test. So don't let her forget how to take a test before she gets to college.
Were you a good test taker?
No, terrible.
Were you?
I was actually a pretty good test taker.
I kind of choked.
If I can write, good.
Yeah.
But if it's A, B, C, D,
yeah,
I
was a really good student, like getting the homework in, and participating in class. And then I think I was a little bit of a perfectionist where I if I missed one, I said, man, I've blown this already, and let it get to me the rest of the test. So,
I was a procrastinator, so I was the master of cramming for an exam. So,
you knew, yeah. Did you always go C if you didn't know it?
No, I usually took a pretty educated guess.
Okay,
or at least tried to.
Everybody kind of said that in the day.
I didn't like A, B, C, D tests.
Hey, this is podcast 32 for us. We have a tradition here now, and we pick, a number 32 that might have affected us in our lifetime. It could be a former teammate, somebody you admired from afar, somebody Adam coached even, things like that. So, Jimmy, we'll kick it off with you.
Well,
let's let our guests.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's do that.
We're always jumping in on this.
Yeah, let's do that.
Adam, go ahead.
Number 32, you kind of got to go with Magic Johnson on that one. I don't know if there's a better number 32 than the man himself. So,
yeah, could you imagine? What was he? 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", you know what I mean?
I think they list him at 6'9".
When you're really next to him, think of 6'9". We've all met a couple of those guys in the day and women, but man.
And he was a point guard.
Yes, that's
played
the
point
thing.
guard, yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it just changed the game completely.
Revolutionized it with his passing ability.
Yeah, and his outgoing ways. So, Jimmy, who are you going with today?
The first person I thought of, we're going to be fully transparent, was O.J. Simpson. I grew up watching him breaking that rushing record. I can remember when he did it in the snow.
With Buffalo.
But I'm going to go with Coach. Magic's got to be mine. I can remember, Larry Bird played in the Missouri Valley Conference, got to see him play here in Amarillo, and I'll never forget that final that they played Indiana State and in Michigan in state in the NCAA finals that year, and look what those two did after that. But yeah, Magic number 32, hands down for me.
I like that. I'm going to have to go with O.J. Simpson. Like when I was growing up, 32 was the running back number. Like even in high schools. Kind of how Jordan is. Everybody wants 23 if they're on a basketball team. Even to this day, it's still special.
Yeah,
even though they never saw him play or maybe just obviously saw video. But even from his USC days, you know what I mean? That's when everybody just kind of like, wow, it's O.J. Simpson. And then what obviously happened to his life was, is just tragic and disgusting in both ways. But no, I got to go O.J. Simpson, number 32.
I did some research on this because after I knew Magic was in, I thought, well, who else is in there? And I pulled the book out.
Yeah.
And I didn't know this, but Dr. J wore 32 in the ABA for 5 years and wanted to be number 32 when he went to the NBA. But they were fixing to retire Billy Cunningham's number, who became his coach at Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So that's when he switched to number 6.
Wow.
And, aren't we glad he did? Because he is the icon for number 6.
He looks pretty dang good in 6. Believe it or not, this is how old I am, guys. I did see an ABA game, the Denver Rockets.
Wow.
Yeah, in North Carolina, and the point guard for set the all-time ABA assist record that night was Larry Brown.
Wow.
He
Really?
played in the 60s, yeah.
Wow.
We went up there because they gave away free ABA, balls, basketballs, the red, white, and blue. And so my mom got us tickets. But, yeah, over at the old Denver Coliseum, yeah.
Larry Brown.
Spencer Haywood, Denver had some guys.
I've seen out on the internet lately, and I don't know how real this is, but they've come out with a commemorative ABA basketball that's for sale. Because every red, white, and blue basketball I ever held was not authentic. It didn't have that leather feel to it. And I really always wanted to see what does one of those feel like, because it didn't look real. And even the orange and white ones that they use in the ladies' game for a while still didn't look real. And so
that's cool. Yeah,
I'd like
the
to see a leather
rotation of the
one.
ball, that was the amazing thing.
Yep.
You just didn't realize how pure those guys were shooters. But
Yep.
We're
telling our age here.
It was a
He
crazy
says
league.
he's
So
old,
he's
but
like,
he's not that much older than me.
He's like, oh my gosh, ABA? Are you kidding me? But it was a fun league, no doubt. It was an outlaw league. It was no rules really applied.
My dad tells stories about those days. He graduated from WT in '79, and he talks about Maurice Cheeks.
Oh yeah.
Being one of his friends. My dad ran track at WT and
nice
held every hurdle record they had for about 30 years before they restarted their track program and started bringing in some good talent. But Dad definitely a big fan of the old Missouri Valley Conference and
So I had
stories.
a bowling. My freshman year, I had a bowling class. You had to take a PE class, and so I had bowling. It was at 8:00, and I hated getting up at 8:00. David Willis was the track coach at the time, and he was our teacher in that. He was our teacher in that bowling class. If we'd come work this is back when we had indoor meets in the activity center.
Yeah.
And if we'd come work his track meets, we'd have to go to bowling class. So I love track meets. So there's probably not much more I really enjoy than watching a good track meet. And we used to have some incredible indoor meets. We put the banks up in the activity center down there, and they pole vaulted and everything. It was fun. Those meets were fun to.
I got fired from my first job at the Canyon News in 4 months. Okay. Arrogant me, ignorant me, a little combination of my boss not being the best boss of all time either. So it was a perfect storm to get fired. But I was embarrassed, Adam. So I went to WT and got on in the sports information office. I didn't want to go back to Colorado and face my mom and dad. Like 4 months in, we spent 5 years in college already, and but I got to announce those games. No, those track meets, if you remember.
Oh, they're fun.
I had a pretty good voice for it at that time. You know what I mean? The track meets.
Yeah.
But he had a decathlon, believe it or not. He would bring in these national decathletes. It was amazing. And they were here, and then they would be in the Olympics because it's such an underrated.
Right.
But they would hold an actual decathlon. They loved it because they were all competing against each other. But got to do a couple of those with Willis. So, yeah. Well, hey, let's get into this, man. Adam, I mean, your resume's amazing, and we're going to get into that. But right now at West Plains, he's been there 3 years, opened the school, 30-11 record, 9 playoff wins already, Jimmy, 9. And I was looking back up that, I mean, one of our schools in town still doesn't have 9, you know what I mean, playoff wins. And then it took Tascosa a while till Coach Plunk got here to reach that number. Yeah. So it's insane what they're doing. But anyway, he's coming off this 11-4 season. We just talked about it. Class 4A Division I state semis, lost to Salina 43-36, 8 points away from Jerry's World. And but if you don't mind, Adam, take us in. Little Adam Cummings, obviously your dad was an athlete, like you just said. When did, obviously you've dedicated your life to teaching and coaching. Right. When did that hit you? Did it just as a youngster or no, late?
No, I mean, even as a kid, I remember, junior high, even elementary, drawing plays, on scratch paper in class. We were one of two things. We were either drawing army scenes, and drawing army men and planes and tanks and stuff. Or we were
Where was this at? Where were?
I grew up in Lockney.
Yeah.
So this would be Lockney Elementary. Me and a couple of my buddies would draw plays, and so I've always kind of had the itch. I've always kind of had that, I guess, instinct to want to do it. And then as I got older, started listening to, different people kind of trying to influence you to go different directions, and thought I wanted to be a lawyer. And so I actually went to college to be an attorney, got accepted to law school at Texas Tech, and ended up kind of getting cold feet the semester before I'm fixing to start, and decided I wanted to do an entire life change of direction in terms of career, and decided to go into education. And a lot of that was because of the influence I had from my coaches. I had great coaches. Malcolm Murby was my head football coach and athletic director growing up in high school. And, him coming back to Lockney, because he had been there before, and so everybody knew him. And then when he came back as the head coach, that changed my life. That changed the trajectory of where I was headed. And then, obviously going to college and being around people like, Jim Garfield, that's the AD at Abilene. He was our defensive coordinator at Midwestern. Wow. Huge impact on me. And then, moving on to Hardin Simmons and being under Jimmy Keeling, living legend. And so just getting the opportunity to be around him and see the impact they had on kids, I knew that I wanted to be a part of something like that.
Was Wardis' brother at Hardin Simmons?
He was. Alan Wardis was our offensive coordinator. He was actually at our game Friday night.
Is that
and
right?
So I got the chance to see him, and he shot me a text when we were driving down and said, "Hey, I'll be at the game. Look forward to seeing you." So it was pretty special to see him, and Coach Keeling reached out and got a chance to talk to him as well. So just really, really good coaches, that influenced me, and they did it the right way. Not only were they good coaches, they were good educators, did things right behind the scenes too. They're good, high character,
That's cool. Yeah.
moral men that just
was it always
an
football or was it all sports?
I was everything. I did football, basketball, track, even took my shot at baseball and tennis for a short period. So I grew up in a small town, so you want your athletes to do it all, and so I was encouraged to do everything. My dad really pushed being multi-sport, because he truly believed that every sport could help the next in terms of just learning different aspects of body control and the mental aspect of it too.
Yeah, that's the way my dad was, old school.
Yeah.
So, I love that. I love that. Yeah.
My dad was a huge influence, though.
Did you have to was that a hard decision, or was something that hit you and said, "I'm not going to be a lawyer"?
It kind of started growing on me, but then one day I literally kind of sounds crazy now to say it, but I kind of woke up and said, I'm going to be a coach. And so I just decided to go that
direction. The world's a better place because of that.
There were some tough conversations with mom and dad, because I was on the 6.5-year plan because of making that decision. I was.
That's always fun.
I was literally a summer from completely finishing and going to law school, and that May I just.
You have the demeanor to be an attorney. I will tell you that much for sure.
You have it. Yeah,
that calm, cool,
calm, cool, and also the vocabulary and verbiage. So So did you start out at Canyon? Was that your first assistant coaching job?
Yeah, that was my first rattle out of the box.
I
was able to cut my teeth there.
Tell us how you got involved with the Canyon program.
It goes back to Jimmy Keeling. Blake Bryant was the head coach at Canyon at the time, and his dad, Bill Bryant, was really good friends with Jimmy Keeling. And so Jimmy called Bill and said, "Hey, your son needs to hire this kid." And so Blake brought me in, and I'll never forget it. It was like it was yesterday. I came in, interviewed with him, and he actually let me stay the night at his house.
Wow.
And so I ate supper with his family, met his son and daughter and wife, and it was a really.
What year was that?
Oh gosh, this would have been 04.
Okay.
So 04,
Yeah.
05.
That staff, the John Dones, the Todd as well, Coach Winfrey, that was that was a combined staff that stayed there a long time. Jimmy as well, So, what was it about Coach Bryant, do you think, that allowed you guys to do that without saying, "Hey, I want to get out of here. I want to be a head coach." Blah blah blah. Because that's the path for a lot of young coaches.
Yeah, no, a lot of it. He shot you straight. He told you what you need to work on, and he'd bring you in. And at the end of every year, he'd bring you in, and we'd talk about goals and who we wanted to be, where we wanted to be, short term and long term. And
Wow.
one of the things I expressed to him early on is I wanted to be a head coach someday. And so I think he put me in positions to learn the skills necessary to do that. But at the same time, he'd hold you accountable. If you said this is what I want to do, then he was going to hold you accountable to that, and he was going to treat you that way. And what I loved about Blake is, he set the standard. He told you what our vision was, and then he was hands off.
Yeah.
As long as you were doing your job and
Yeah.
you were taking care of your business, he was going to let you coach. And I always appreciated that about him, because I think, as a young coach, I learned things through failure, and I learned through trial and error. And as long as it wasn't a detriment to the entire program, he allowed me to do that. And I just a lot of credit, to him for just allowing me the opportunities he gave me.
What? See, 19 years there, 20?
No, he was
20
20 plus.
20?
Because I was there 10, and then he was there another 8 after I left. And
His son was in my oldest daughter's class. Jalen and Bill were in the same class, and
it might have been 19 or 20. He was
Okay.
around
Yeah,
20.
yeah. No, he had a great
long
run.
time. And in the coaching world, that's just, you don't hear many of those.
No, it's pretty
not-
remarkable.
not-
I always say there's two things going to happen to a coach: either going to fire or going to get retired. Or they're retiring. One of the two.
That's right.
My dad was a coach, and he's experienced that part. That's why we ended up in Colorado.
Yeah.
Campus Colts, Hayesville, Kansas. Never forget, he was the head football coach.
Well, that's why Dad got
Right
out.
across.
That's why my dad got
Yeah,
out.
his dad was-
That's
Yeah.
why Dad got out. And
I got to ask you, Adam. So you're there 10 years. Are you have you had the feelers out? Like, hey, I may try to get this job. I may, you know what I mean? Because, and I was going to ask you, did you take a lot of Blake? Not a lot, but some of Blake's ideas with you. Are they still with you today?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a definite pedigree there, and lineage of things I learned from him and watched him, and just the way he operated, the way he managed his program.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things I've taken.
Yeah.
Most of it I stole without asking. So, but
No,
no,
that's cool.
he was always so generous with his time, and he still is, even in retirement. I talked to him last week. I asked him some information that I needed. Never been to the semifinals before as a head coach, and so there were some things I needed to inquire about and get information from him to see how he handled it. But he's always been great about that stuff.
I think Hale Center was the first job, right? So take us into that. You're going to transition from being, and we all get in a comfort zone and enjoying that. It was probably pretty comfortable at Canyon High at that time.
Yeah,
just you're around your best friends. Coach Bryant's great to work for.
Yeah, well,
great kids in that program.
yeah, we were winning.
Yeah, and winning.
We just come off
Yeah.
a quarterfinal.
Yeah.
and and arguably one of the best teams in Canyon history, with some of the best players. Dylan Douglas being one of them. I was pretty spoiled rotten as a defensive coordinator, having that kid in the middle of our defense. But go to Hill Center, and it's not the same. And there's a young, inexperienced staff. Basically every kid that I hired on our staff. I say kid, I was a kid too at the time, but most of them were straight out of college.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we had 5 of us on staff, and of the 5, 3 of them were fresh out of college. One was my brother-in-law, who had never coached 11-man football before, and myself. And
Yeah.
so you had a first-year head coach and a bunch of guys that had no clue. So we learned together, and it was one of the best times in my career, to be honest. One of the most challenging, but at the same time, very rewarding, because everything we did it together, and we're a tight knit group to this day. Those are my best friends.
That's
Bobby
awesome.
Workman, Isaiah Barrera, just great human
Babs
beings.
give you any insights there? She coached at Hill
Yeah,
Center.
no, it's kind of that connection's always been kind of cool, because Joe and Babs would come back when that team would be honored and be recognized.
I had a college friend that was on that 79 bunch with her, and then had a college friend, Keith Mullins, was from Hale Center and coached at Hale Center for years, and so a little bit of knowledge there, and then Speaker Pete Laney was from Hale Center back in the day too, and so back when I ran the alumni office, I had a few meetings with him, and so I've got some Hale Center connections with friends from college. And
how long were you at Hale Center then?
I was there 4 years,
and then you went on to Sundown. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what was that transition like?
That was a little different, because you're coming into Sundown. One, they were in our district at Hale Center, so that was not. For a lot of people, was not seen very kindly, which I understand, but I just felt like it was a good move for my family. I always thought of Sundown kind of as a small version of Canyon ISD. They academically, they were always competing for Lone Star Cup championships, and the entire time we were there, we were always in the top 5, and so. Pretty special place, and the opportunity to work for Scott Marshall, who was a superintendent at the time. Just great experience. I learned so much from him. He really pushed me to go into administration. He thought that I had a knack for it, and he wanted me to
was
go.
that ever close? I mean, that was.
Well, I've got my master's, got my principal certification, got my superintendent certification. So a lot of that was because of his influence. And Joey Nichols was our interim superintendent when I was at Health Center. And Joey was a longtime coach and real successful girls basketball coach, and so learned a lot from him. Learned a lot from Scott Marshall, but just great time at Sundown. It was really good, really great for my kids. They blossomed in education. Their academic careers really took off there, and I total credit to Sundown and what they do academically.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
I've got a bachelor's and master's in education, and I never taught a day in my life. Kind of talk about the cold feet. I was scheduled, this is back when I was in school, you did 8 weeks of methods classes and you did 8 weeks of student teaching your last semester. And so I was scheduled to go to Cap Rock High School for my student teaching for 8 weeks, last 8 weeks of the school semester. And on Thursday, I got those cold feet. And I had a job offer at the university at the time to go to work in housing. And I took it. And I had to call my professor to let him know that I'm making a little switch here, and I had to take 2 classes in the summer. So my bachelor's degree actually says general studies because I didn't do my student teaching. Then I went back, and my wife and I both went through the educational administration master's program. And so I have that. I don't have my mid-management. I don't have superintendent certification, but I have that same master's degree. And here's what I'll say about my classmates and folks that I went to college with. You go around and you look at superintendents and principals, and I'll just say in the top 26 counties of the Texas Panhandle, and I would like to know what percentage of them were coaches at one time. And people kind of look funny at that comment, but my point being is coaches get faced with things that a classroom teacher doesn't always get faced with. And the leadership skills that coaches learn through adversity and dealing with people and one-on-one with those kids day in and day out, there's a grooming process that comes along with coaches that not everybody else gets. Sure. And and it trains
parents,
them. Dealing with the parents, dealing with all of that, and budgets.
Yeah.
And so you get a little head start on others that maybe don't have that coaching background. But I would love to know what percentage of our principals and superintendents in the top 26 counties were coaches at one time. And I bet it's pretty high.
It's high. The statistics. I don't know the exact numbers.
Yeah.
I've actually, when I was on the board of directors with THSCA, we actually talked about this, and we had a superintendent come in who was an ex-coach that talked to us and talked about the declining numbers of educational leadership that are coaches. That number's going down significantly over the past 10, 15 years. And so, I think more coaches need to get involved in
Did they
educational
address
leadership.
why that was happening, or did they have
they weren't real sure. I think a lot of it's just the climate of education
Yeah.
in today's world right now. There's a lot of pressure and a lot of different factors, but I think obviously I agree with you that I think coaches make great administrators because of the things they deal with. They're always in a fishbowl, you know.
Yep,
They're always being looked at, criticized, and they always have to perform under pressure. And I think that speaks volumes when you talk about educational leadership.
I guess one of our lessons today is cold feet is not a bad thing. I did believe it or not, I was an elementary ed all the way through, except in Colorado you had to have a semester of student teaching. You go into a school,
Right.
or they wouldn't give you the degree. And so that last semester, I took a journalism class, fell in love with that, and then had to stay an extra year, kind of like you, to get it
turned
done.
out all right
Yeah,
for
but both my parents were teachers, so
Yeah.
I love that part of it. But yeah, because I'm that close for an L.Ed degree, but I'm like you, mine's a journalism.
Yeah.
And then that
I
close.
would have never gone. I would have never gone back to work on a master's degree. But talking about people that you worked for, Barry Thompson became our president at WT, and most charismatic, hands down, most charismatic leader I ever worked for. And he came in to me one day and he said, "I know there's people bugging you about that master's degree." He said, "I'm going to teach a class in the spring. Come take it and let's get you started." And that's the reason I started, is because
That's cool.
he had me come take a class and.
Everybody needs a little shove.
Yeah,
don't they?
and so that
I love that.
he was the best one I ever worked for.
All right, Adam, West Plains is rumored, CISD, where you cut your coaching teeth on and everything, and all of a sudden you hear this new school's going to be built. So, and you're at Sundown having success, obviously. What take us into that when you first thought, hey, you know what, I think I'm going to maybe look into this thing.
Yeah, I'll be honest. When I left Canyon, there was already talks about the new school.
Okay,
we were
fair
just
enough,
we were
yeah.
just growing so fast at
Yeah.
that time, and we were actually 5A. When I
Yeah.
was my last year at Canyon, so we were already bigger than the school district wanted, and we knew Randall was growing because of the growth of Amarillo, and so the talk was already there. So I knew when I left Canyon the first time, I was either going to try to come back someday as the head coach at Canyon High, or I was going to come back and try to be the head coach of the new high school. That was my long-term goal, and Blake
Nice.
Blake knew that, and we talked about that actually when I called him and said, "Hey, I'm fixing to put in for the new West Plains job," and he said, "It's time." And I think he was pretty instrumental in getting my foot in the door, to be honest. I think he still had lots of connections, and of course, knowing Mike Wardis and the influence he had on my career when I was at Canyon as the superintendent, and I think that helped as well. So got my foot in the door because of that. So yeah, it was always kind of a long-term goal.
How was the interview?
It was unique because it was the first time it was over a Zoom call.
Oh, wow.
And I interviewed with Toby Tucker, who was the AD at the time, and Eric Gomez, and so met with them over Zoom. So I'm literally in my living room in Sundown. I'm in a suit and tie in my living room by myself, and so it was kind of it was a different type of interview, and that was actually a full year before I actually got the job.
Oh,
and so
wow.
we went through a series of interviews, and then I'm not exactly sure what happened, but they decided to put everything on hold, and so I basically waited 9 months.
Wow.
This would have been the March before my last year at Sundown. And
my.
yeah, so pretty
know
crazy.
that.
Yeah, pretty crazy. And
What's the if you don't mind, take us in. What's the questioning like when you're trying to get, or what do they want to know about you when you're trying to become a head football coach of a school?
I think they want to see your vision. They want to see, what your principles are going to be, what your foundation, your core values. And so we spent a lot of time just talking about who I was and what I represented and what I wanted, what I envisioned, West Plains being, in terms of an overall program, and I think that was obviously you look at the things leading up to that point, being at Health Center and really getting to experiment. I mean, when I went to Health Center, there wasn't a huge winning tradition in the football program, and so I was able to go in and experiment, try things without the fear of being fired for not winning. And so, when you look at it like that, there were things I was able to kind of figure out about myself as a head coach and about ways to manage players and coaches and program. And then when I go to Sundown, there's a long-standing tradition of success and winning, And so then it was about, okay, I'm coming into a staff that's already established. I'm only able to bring one guy with me, which was Jeff Lyles, who's our offensive coordinator at West Plains. So he came with me to Sundown, and it was a whole nother set of learning experiences, and being able to learn how to take a freestanding tradition and be able to raise that standard, and then the things that we did in terms of Lone Star Cup championships and all that kind of stuff. I was able to take that and move it into kind of mold it together and kind of put my own stamp on it as we came to West Plains.
So when you got the job, what was the celebration like with your family?
It was cool. It was like coming home. I mean, the Amarillo area, Canyon's always been home. You know, that's where I met my wife. My wife was a student at WT. I was a first-year coach at Canyon. And so both our kids were born in Amarillo at Northwest Hospital. And so it's always been home. It's an hour from my mom and dad. It's an hour from her mom and dad. So it was, you know, she grew up in Fritz, so it's right in the middle, you know. And so it was just a really good location for us. You know, her sister moved back to Amarillo shortly after we got the job. So, you know, we've got family in Amarillo now, and it's just it's a great fit for us as a family. So it's been very exciting.
I've always wondered this, Jimmy. I don't know about you, but okay, so you're going into West Plains. I mean, no coach ever gets to do it hardly. It's a brand new school. I mean, you're talking like Jerry Jones said when he first got it, jocks, socks, the whole deal. You know what I mean? You're doing everything. But getting to know you a little bit the last 3 years, culture is big with you. So did you actually sit down? There were two things I wanted to know. How did you build your staff? I know you knew that was going to be important.
Right.
The first meetings of this first year, and then the word culture comes up a lot. So what is culture to you?
Culture's who you are. I mean, it's your foundational principles. You know, for us, we've got 4 pillars that, you know, that we kind of look towards when we're hiring coaches. And at the end of the day, the bottom line is, would I want my son to play for that individual? I mean, that's it. It sounds pretty selfish, but at the same time, I want high quality, high character, hardworking, honest men and women coaching my kids. And so those are the type of people we went after.
Yeah.
But at the root of it, you know, we wanted people that were not scared to get their hands dirty, not scared to work, not scared to wear multiple hats. So to be honest, we went after a lot of small school guys that had those kind of experiences. It doesn't mean that everybody on our staff coached at small schools, but even if they didn't, they still had that mindset, and they still operated that way even at a 5 or a 6A school. They had those experiences that allowed them to do that. And so that was the big part of it, was finding those kind of people. And then the third element was, are they gonna be able to work on a team?
Yeah.
You know, and so, you know, I may not be the best X's and O's guy, and I've said this before. You know, I've got guys that are way better than that on my staff they're better X's and O's coaches than I am. But I think a skill that I have is picking people and being able to identify winners and guys that
That's
can
a
work
Mike
together.
Wardis. Mike and I are good friends, and I can remember days we were in Lions Club together when I was running the alumni office at WT. And there's a lot of people who don't know this, and at this point in time, it's no big deal. But we used to sit out in the car afterwards because they were recruiting him to be the athletic director at WT at the time.
Oh, wow.
And I can tell you why he didn't take the job. One of the main reasons. Mike's really good at hiring coaches and working and developing those relationships with coaches, but he didn't want to raise money. And he asked for me to be able to come over with him to be the assistant AD, and they weren't going to let me. Oh, wow. And he didn't take the job. Wow. I'm not saying he didn't take the job because of me, but I'm just saying he knows what his strengths are.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to spend his time raising money. That's what I did, and I think we would have made a good team.
Yeah.
And we still talk about that to this day. But this was a long, long time ago, and twice they tried to come after him to take that job, and he just didn't want to deal with the development side of it, and it's because he knows where his strengths are. And we talked about this the other day. I asked Boone Pickens to his face many years ago what made Mesa fly, And he said, if I didn't hire geologists smarter than me, Mesa would have never been anything. And that's what you're talking about here. Is you can't be afraid to hire somebody that's smarter than you in a different area. That's you being smart. And so kudos to you for being able to recognize that and see that, because there's a lot of people that are intimidated by not having folks on their staff that they don't feel are as qualified as they are. Right. That's not how you go about doing it. I got a young lady over there. We wouldn't be sitting here today if I didn't have all this.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've got a whole bunch more of them in there that are skilled in other areas, and that's why it flies. Sure. And so,
how fun was it, Adam, starting a whole new program? The fun factor of it, it was, very few people get a chance to do this in their life.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work. I think it was probably more work than I really even realized it would be.
What was the work? What was the load? What was the just everything, hiring?
The hiring was the big part of it. I mean, because we were interviewing. It felt like every day, for several months straight. Because and you're having to coordinate with principals too, because they're hiring with you. So
and you didn't have upperclassmen at the time either. Is that right?
Well, so we not really. We didn't have any seniors. That first year, we had seniors when we opened the doors. Yeah. But we had 6 that played for us. I think overall in the entire high school, I think we had 65 or 70.
Yeah. Oh wow.
So not a lot of seniors. Had a good junior class, which obviously graduated last year. So everything junior and below, we were full, but our senior class was pretty small. But it was a lot of fun. I don't know that I'd ever want to do it again necessarily.
Interesting,
but it was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot about myself and like kind of like what you said, kind of where my limitations were and where I needed help. And I was very thankful to have Eric Gomez. He's great. He's the best I've ever worked with. Toby Tucker was awesome. He was very instrumental in getting things going. And then getting to work with John Peterson, our current AD. Mm-hmm. He was the assistant AD. And so there were lots of things that were happening during that time. And it just got to build those relationships with those guys. And I think that made a big difference too.
You were talking about when you were at Canyon, y'all were 5A, and I was on a committee at that time that had to readjust the lines in the district. We had to move the line a little farther north, and the Canyon folks didn't like that because we were trying to balance out Randall and Canyon at that time. And I'll never forget, we had a meeting, and we had one open meeting at Randall and one open meeting at Canyon. And Mike Wardis is up on the stage answering questions from people. And this lady comes up, and our dividing line was going to be McCormick.
Yeah.
And and if you lived north of McCormick, you would be in the Randall feeder pattern. If you lived south of McCormick, you're in the Canyon feeder pattern. And this lady says, I live on McCormick. And Mike's up there going, okay, so do you live on the north side or the south side? She said, I live on McCormick Road. Where will my kids go to school? And he answers it, and she says, you don't understand, I live on McCormick. He said, ma'am, I've driven these boundaries I don't know how many times, and I have yet to run into a house on McCormick Road. You either live on the north side or the south side. And bottom line, she wasn't getting the answer she wanted. But I remember that, and I tell Lance this from time to time because we live in Canyon. Our kids went to Canyon. Canyon's still having to learn how to become a big school district, and they're going through growing pains. Sure. And and with all the growth that's going on out there, the housing developments that are coming up just left and right. Canyon's having to adjust the district itself how to be a big school district, and that's just part of the growing pains.
Absolutely.
But to be on the new end of the new thing, y'all are the golden child right now, and I'll just say it out loud. I think West Plains is the golden child, and they're living up to it.
Yeah, they are definitely living up to it. I gotta ask you, a chance to run out on the field for that first West Plains game. You know what I mean? Finally, it's here. Yeah. Uniforms are all ready. Everybody's going. What was that experience like for you? You'd been in many a high school football game by that time, but
sure.
What was that like for you personally?
Pretty surreal. Just the sheer number of people that were at that game. With it being Bushland and us, and Bushland obviously was state ranked and a really quality program. Still are. Coach Reynolds does a great job with that program. It was pretty breathtaking. I mean, you walk onto the field and you just see, 7,000 people in the stands. I'm coming from a 2A high school. Hadn't seen that in a while. Yeah. So it was pretty
7,000 in Kimbrough is one thing, but 7,000 there was a different story.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. And then how have you guys been able to do this, Adam? If you don't mind taking us in the success you've had, it's not by accident, you know, and you've built this culture that you talked about with these kids that really believe in the coaches and the coaches reciprocating that. If you talk to your players, almost to a man, they'll say, "Look, you know, our coaches, you know, this is why we're here." Yeah. You know what I mean? They set this plan out for us, so we're not just going blind.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's so many factors.
Okay.
First, I mean, you've got to have great kids. I mean, you can't win football without good Jimmies and Joes.
Yeah,
fair enough. Bottom line, you
got
to have good kids, and we've got really good talent. We've got really smart kids. We've got really high character kids, and I think when you have that, it makes everything else a little easier. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say that it's all coaching or X's and O's, because it's not. If you don't have the right guys, you just can't operate. And so we've got great kids. Second, we've got a good staff. We got, in my opinion, we got the best staff in the state of Texas. You know, what we do X's and O's wise, that's one thing, but what we do behind the scenes in terms of character development, leadership development, you know, our boot camp that we do, Coach Brzeski and Coach Lofton have developed we call it Wolf Maker, and it's you know, some of it's stolen from what we used to do at Canyon, some of it's stolen from stuff Coach Brzeski's done, some of it's stolen from Idalou that Coach Lofton used to do. It's a little bit of everything from everywhere, and that's what's cool about our staff is we all have different experiences and different successes and failures that we're able to kind of sit down at the drawing table and make it ours. And so our staff is really good. And I think that's probably...
We should go to boot camp.
We wouldn't survive.
But
I know Brzeski.
We can just be flies on the wall.
No, I don't know. I don't think Brzeski allows people just to be flies on the wall.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Y'all
are more than welcome to come come observe.
I like that name though. So yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of different factors, you know what I mean?
That's just the football side. I mean, you've got to have great administrators. You've got to have great faculty, and we've got all that. And that's where I give Eric Gomez a ton of credit for what his vision. Because I think from the word go, he and I were on the same page, and that I don't know that always happens that way. And you've got to have that as a campus coordinator, as a head football coach with your high school principal, and the people he's brought in. And we've lost good people too in this short amount of time because they were good. You know, people have stole them, and that's what happens when you bring good people in. Is people try to take them, and the crazy thing about it is he's brought in great people to replace those great people, and that to me that's a testament to his ability to go out and get good people.
I know you had that vision, but are you a little surprised that it's gone this well from the outside looking in? You know what I mean? And I'm not just talking football. I'm talking about the vibe at the school is a special vibe. You know, the other programs are doing great. Academics, you know, tennis got you a state title already, things like that.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm surprised.
Okay.
I'm a glass half full guy. You know, I'm the guy that thinks we're going to win state every year.
I like it.
So, you know, I don't know if surprised is the word. I think, you know, pleased.
Yeah.
I think is maybe a better word. I don't know. I've just got all the belief in the world in West Plains right now, and a lot of it's because of the people, both kids and adults that are participating. I just think we've got the right mixture and the right culture, and I think we're going in the right direction.
You know, I think that's one thing that Canyon ISD does well. They set their folks up for success, and you don't ever want to go the other direction. It's just not right. Yep. And whether it's Canyon High, Randall High, or West Plains, they're all set up for success. I mean, my gosh, Randall
back to back.
I mean,
absolutely. Speaking of the Texas,
I'm talking about that Lone Star Cup and all that. I mean, they're set up for success. You know, my wife got to spend the last 5 years of her public school career in Canyon ISD, opening Pinnacle Intermediate, and seeing it from a different perspective after having been in Emerald ISD for many years and even Highland Park her first 3 years. They set them up for success, and that's to be applauded.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way I want to be here. Is I want to set people up for success. I don't want to set them up for failure, and it's easy to do if you're not cognitive of it. And so, I think what they've done is set everybody up to where they can take it and run with it. And
Yeah.
that's what y'all done is you've taken it and you run with it. And in 3 years, you've done a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have.
We've got good support from our community too.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Canyon ISD. The growing pains of adding a third feeder pattern.
Yeah.
That's a huge undertaking. It's in essence you're increasing your budget by a third. So you've got to learn to operate on a bigger scale, and we're going through those growing pains, but at the same time we're persevering and we're having success because of what you're talking about. Just that vision.
But that brand's visible.
Absolutely.
It's very visible around town. You see it.
Oh, yeah.
And those folks out there are extremely proud of it.
Sure.
And that's a lot in due to what you and others have done out there. And so my hat's off to you because it's not easy to go in and start. My wife opened 3 different schools, and there's a lot of growing pains involved.
Yeah. Yeah.
That brand is very. You would think it's been here forever because it's already very well established.
And the colors are great as well.
Oh yeah,
so.
I do agree.
Hey, we got to ask you about this season. I mean, it was emotional. I mean, the success, but you also, lost somebody in your family very special to you as well. So, take us through this year. When you guys started back in August, you know what I mean? Did you? I mean, you said glasses half full guy. I believe it. If you've ever been around Adam, he is a glasses half full guy. It's no facade. It's nothing fake about it. But to be in the state semifinals, did you think this team had that potential?
Yeah, the potential was there from
from
the word go. We knew that.
But you start out 2-3.
We did start out 2-3.
Fair enough. Everybody looks at the record, not who you're playing, which was brutal.
We knew there were going to be some growing pains. Speaking of growing pains, but we knew that we had a lot of youth coming in, a lot of former JV players, first time varsity players, but athletically, the talent was there. We knew that the football IQ was there. We knew that it was just a matter of making it all fit and making it click. And I think playing a tough non-district schedule helped us. I think it helped one expedite it. We had to learn quickly. We couldn't take our time. We had to learn things on the job, and so that was good for us as coaches. I think we evolved as a staff. I think we got better as a staff because we had to find ways to get it done. But at the same time, our kids learned to play really hard-nosed football through our non-district schedule, and so I was still optimistic. There was never a sense of panic with our staff or our kids. I think it comes back to that. You mentioned it earlier, just the belief in each other. Our kids just never wavered. They kept faith in our coaching staff that we were going to find a way to put them in a position to be successful. And then our coaches just kept believing in our kids, to get a job done. And eventually it started to click a little bit. And then as district got rolling, we got better and better.
Yeah.
So.
Coached against Jason Witten. He's a Cowboy. Adam's a longtime Cowboys fan. Take our listeners in, our viewers in. What was that experience like for you?
That was pretty cool. I think it was more it was more exciting for my son. Honestly, he's a ball boy on our team, and he got an autographed football card and got a picture taken with him. And
very cool.
I was a little too I was too prideful to go do that. I wasn't gonna do it.
That's the guy that was considered potential head football coach at the University of Tennessee at one time.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not just an old tight end. This guy's
real quick about that experience. So you got to, sometimes your heroes or sometimes somebody in the spot like that disappoints you big time, But he was the coach. He's signaling, he's yelling at him just like you are on the other sideline. And then afterward, he did take the time. There was about probably 100, 200 people.
Yeah,
maybe 150 people just waiting, and he took a whole hour.
Wow.
After he had talked to his team, he made sure he addressed them. But he kind of knows his place right now.
Sure.
Took about an hour, signing autographs, talking to people, doing whatever.
Yeah.
I was very impressed with that part of it.
Yeah, no, he was a class act through and through.
And they went on in one state. And then you guys went on and didn't lose for 9 straight weeks. You know what I mean? So yeah, pretty special. I got to ask you, as a coaching staff, Jimmy, they prepare for a Stephenville and a Salina. Anybody who loves Texas high school football knows those are blue bloods. They're the cream of the crop as far as year in and year out making an impact on the Texas high school football playoffs. So, what was that like for you guys to match wits against those programs?
is an honor, just to be in that conversation with those, kind of blue bloods that you mentioned, Stephenville's, Brownwoods, obviously the Salinas of the world, to be not only in that conversation, but win or be in the game, where we're putting ourselves in a chance to possibly win the game. I think speaks volumes of our kids and our coaching staff, and that we belong on that stage. And our kids, we addressed it after the game against Salina, but we talked on Monday as well, just kind of recapping and reflecting on the season. And last year was tough. Last year I think everybody was exhausted. It was our first big playoff run. There were a lot of firsts still involved. And then this year, kind of the same, but at the same time, this year was almost more rewarding because of how we started. The progress and the success that came late was because of just keeping your nose to the grind and kept working. And so I think there's a little bit of an energizing feel at the end of this season that maybe we didn't have last year. And I think our kids they're chomping at the bit to go back to work, which is crazy in mid-December that our coaches and kids they're ready to start again. And so awesome. I'm excited about that.
You have a quarterback, Reed Macon, who started every game for West Plains. The numbers he's going to put up eventually, right. Knock on wood, he gets to play all year next year, are pretty impressive. But you couldn't have predicted that you're kind of fortunate. You did take a risk starting a freshman quarterback. Yeah. For your first year, and it's kind of paid off. But does it take a special person to do that?
Oh yeah, he's special. In 22 years, he's the best quarterback I've coached by far. He's got moxie. He's got that drive. He's got the football IQ. He's got the talent, the arm talent. It astonishes me that colleges aren't recruiting him harder, because in my opinion, he's one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the state of Texas. Yeah. And we've played a couple of them that were ranked higher than him, and he was still the best quarterback on the field. That being said, man, what he does for us and his leadership and just his competitive spirit, it's unmatched. And he's going to put more time in terms of film study, in terms of learning the game, learning our offense, and just his work ethic. He's going to put more in than anybody, and you got to have that in your signal caller.
Yeah, he's nearing 10,000 yards passing.
Yeah,
Did you ever imagine that?
No, but I know his dad knows more.
Oh yeah,
and his dad was a competitor, and they're just that apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah,
and Ross is a competitor.
Yeah. And you have several guys like that though. That feed off each other. It's kind of the vibe I get when you're around West Plains football.
And I think you got to have that. I think you got to have guys that are willing to compete a little bit with each other, amongst each other, whether it be off season, whether it be in drills, whether it be in the amount of film study they put in.
Well, I'll tell you right now, and I told you this before we got on, I thought you had the game won. We went to eat with the kids that night and got in. I got to the computer as fast as I could, turned it on. There's 8 minutes left in the third, and you're up 17-14. And I can walk you through the rest of the game. They go down, score twice. You get a score and go for 2. And then they score again. You're down 12. 35-23. We're in the fourth. I'm thinking, this one's getting away. And here we come. Score.
Yeah.
We go up 36-35, and I'm thinking, you got this thing. You've got them. If we can just
like 2:38 to play.
2:34 left, and if we can stop. And I'm listening to a guy that I know really well that's very unique. He's your counselor at your high school.
Yeah.
So what a great insight he has. Lucas does a great job.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, I'm texting him, and I know he can't read his phone, but I'm going, man, I feel like I'm sitting right next to you in the booth. It was a great football game.
Yeah.
And unfortunately you came up short, but by golly, the bottom line is those kids never quit.
Mm-mm.
They get down 2 scores in the fourth, they came back and they're ahead with 2:34 left in the ball game.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say that, and then here's what I'm going to finish with for me today. I hope our listeners get this. Lance, we've been doing this for a while now. This is number 32, and we've brought coaches in. And coaches get stereotyped a lot of times, good or bad, in their profession. But when you get to sit and listen to somebody like Coach Cummings and the others that we've had on here and see a different side of them, that's not all about X's and O's, and there's a life that goes on behind the scenes and all the things that they do, we're really fortunate to get to sit down with folks like this. So I just want people to know there's good people out there taking care of your kids and doing a good job with them and being leaders for them and role models. And that's what makes the Texas Panhandle float, is good people like that. And man, I tell you what, I have all the respect in the world for you. I know your kids have that for you.
Well, I appreciate
and I know that community out there does too. So I want to say that before we get done here.
Yeah, and we've got to visit one more thing. You know, life is life. And, you know, I've lost both my parents, and during this year you had to experience that with a very special person in your life. How did you handle it, man? And how are you doing with that?
As good as you can, you know. Sorry.
No,
It's not the first.
You know,
it's all good, man.
I can count on one hand in my playing and coaching career the number of games that she missed, and it was usually because one of my nieces or nephews was being born or they had a game. It wasn't because she just didn't want to go. My mom and dad have been my biggest fans and supporters from day one. Jeff Lyles, my offensive coordinator, lost his mother this year too.
Wow.
During the season,
and so know that.
And they were the same way. You know, he's an only child, and his mom and dad came to everything. Yeah. So we experienced that together. You know, Jeff and I go way back. He's a Florida boy. I'm a Lockney boy. So we've got that. And but you know, our families have been really close for the last 10 years. And his mom and dad and my mom and dad have gotten to be good friends over the years, just traveling to football games together. And man, we leaned into each other pretty hard. You know, and to have the staff that I've got, to have the kids that we have, you know, just phenomenal support. And our parents, you know, the way they rallied around Coach Lyles and myself during this season was pretty remarkable. And you feel very blessed and loved when you've got those kind of people surrounding you. And it's I don't know. It's pretty special.
She was a legendary school teacher as well.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Was good.
So
she taught for almost 30 years and retired a couple years ago, and you know, just had a battle with leukemia that kind of came out of nowhere, and got diagnosed, and within a week she was gone.
Wow.
So very, very sudden, but at the same time, you know, her legacy is something that I think people see that in her three kids and myself and my brother and my sister, and the way they live their lives. And you know, my brother's the IT director for Wayland Baptist University. My sister's a school counselor and educator, and her husband's a coach, boys basketball coach at Graham. So, you know, I think the education legacy lives on with her kids, and so
that's where community comes in. You know, Lance and I can remember when Megan Morton passed away, and James was coaching in Freona, and how that community rallied around him, and they had a 1-year-old, you know, at the time.
Yeah.
And that's tough times, but when a community comes to rally around you, it sure does help. And
yeah, we appreciate you sharing that, though. Yeah, because it's tough. Just remembering my mom right now, it does get emotional.
Yeah.
But it's cool. It's very cool. So she got a great view of it. So was your dad pretty pleased with this season?
Oh yeah. I mean, he kind of touched on what y'all said about just the resiliency of our kids. You know, he said, man, they never cease to amaze me how hard your kids play, and they never cease to amaze me either. I mean, they just kept coming and just kept fighting, and very, very pleased with just their effort.
Well, my wife had those kids at Pinnacle, a nucleus of them, and she knew when they were that age they were going to be special, and look what they're doing. So,
I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Hey, what a great conversation today, Adam. Thanks for coming in. We know you're busy here with the Christmas time and all that, and Jimmy, as always, really good stuff today.
Yeah, this was a good one.
Yeah, it was he's in very. I knew you, but I didn't know you. You know, when you were assistant, and I will say, you can follow me around when somebody asks me about Adam Cummings. I'm like, wow, that dude can flat out coach.
Yep.
But it's much, much more than that. You know what I mean? I just want you to know that I've enjoyed getting to know you and watch your teams play. I think they do reflect a coaching staff and the head coach. You know, I think that's real when people say that. And West Plains does that. So
I appreciate it.
hey, let's hop out of here. This is number 32. We can't thank you enough for joining us today on the Fieldhouse Podcast. It's a production of the Kids Inc. Sports Network, and we'll be back soon with another guest. Thanks for listening and viewing today.